All right, so a lot of people asked me what I thought about today's change on the standard format, and I'll try to keep it concise. As you guys know, I'm not a standard grinder. I was getting interested in standard when I went to the GP Minneapolis event. Leading up into that, I was playing a lot of standard, getting coached by T-Woo, and the whole rotation thing kind of put me off altogether. So I definitely have my own opinions, but I want to sum up a little bit of the feedback because I happen to be in a fortunate position where I can see a lot of players' opinions, whether through my comment section, the virtue of social media, or just the people I talk to day to day. And so if you don't know, Wizards has reversed their faster rotating standard and gone back to the way it was. So in essence, sets like Kaladesh now will be standard legal for 2 years. That's a good thing, I think, but let me share what some of my concerns are. First of all, Wizards didn't really give this new rotation a chance. The decision to make this change really feels knee-jerk. And while everyone's coming out, at least the pundits in this space, saying that this decision was just universally great for the players, I definitely think there's a little bit more to it. I mean, I think you can't argue with results, and what I'm not privy to is attendance results. And I can only assume that the reason they changed this was because they were seeing lower attendance at F&M and have determined that this was in fact the reason why. I thought Brian aptly mentioned or brought up the fact in his video about how people fall in love with their decks. They identify with their decks, and a faster rotating standard does take that away from players. I definitely see value there. But overall, I think the initial change of standard was purely about money, and the change back, again, was purely about money. They must have seen drastic enough drops in standard F&M attendance and GP attendances or whatever to warrant such a knee-jerk change. A lot of people who replied directly to Mark Rosewater said things like, well, I guess, but we didn't even get a chance to see what this would do to standard. We didn't even get a chance to see what this would do to standard deck prices. And I think that's a very valid point. I think what it shows is Wizards was not convinced the first time, or their decision originally to change the standard format was not well thought out. Because had it been well thought out, I think that their response would have been much different. I think if things were going as planned, now certainly they could have just been wrong, which is clearly what they think here, I believe. That's just my opinion. But I think they could have done better thinking about it. I think maybe this decision came down from on high. Maybe it was one of the questions, how can we sell more packs? And one argument is that packs, faster rotating standard doesn't sell packs. Thriving Community does. Okay, fine, but I disagree with that. I think while having a thriving community is great, faster rotating standard means people are drafting more often, because when me as a drafter, when formats got stale, I just stopped going to draft. So faster rotation, more sets, things like that, just led things to feel more fresh, longer, whether it was real or perceived. So I think drafting would have withstood longer periods of staleness under the old system. Some of the big people speaking out, against it, I think could be summarized as this: promotional players, people who view themselves as promotional players or grinders, generally don't like the idea. It seems to me like Wizards, here's my theory. Wizards is reacting to some attendance numbers, or some, what we've seen is they very well may have read a single post on Reddit and dropped it completely, but that's neither here nor there. I think even if you see the video I put out 2 weeks ago, I mentioned this, that it's putting pressure on people and it's keeping me out of the game. So I think there are other people that felt the way I felt. But I think here's who's complaining. The people that never left. Okay, the people that have been playing Standard every Friday, going to PTQs, PPTQs, Grand Prix, etc. They don't like the change. The people who are more casual FNMers, the chump meat for grinders, do like the change. And there are far more chump meats than there are grinders or promotional players. So I get it. I think it's a net positive win financially for Wizards of the Coast to get Standard curious players to play the game more. Like myself, for example, with my hectic schedule, and it's well documented how often I work, and I have this channel. With Standard rotating so quickly, I felt like I wouldn't even bother with it. But now, going back to the old way, we get to see, or life can happen, so to speak. Things can happen. And your entire collection won't go down the tank if you're a Standard player and you forget to sell everything off. And I think that's really what's driving this decision. It's targeted at players like myself, limited players that would play Standard but were intimidated by the faster rotation. It's not targeted at promotional players or grinders. Some of the biggest positives, I think, are that overall attendance will probably go back up at FNMs. People will be able to afford to buy into Standard. Again, whether that's real or perceived, it seems to be, at very least, perceived. And as I said earlier, when life happens, you're not kind of hosed. But there are plenty of negatives. One, we'll never know. Obviously, there was some reason they went to this rotation format in the first place. I'll take off my skeptic hat here, my cynic hat, and say that there was some reason other than money that they went to this the faster rotation. What was that reason? And why is that reason no longer valid? What's changed? We don't know. We haven't seen the faster rotation happen yet. So I don't like that. What I also don't like is the thought of Siege Rhino and Collected Company being in Standard for 2 years. I think that's one of the biggest drawbacks. There are unanswered questions, as usual. Although I will say I think Wizards did a pretty good job communicating this change. Are they going to extend Magic Online redemptions? Because as it stands right now, I read a tweet stating that Aether Revolt is only 1/6 the time of Standard in terms of their redemption policy online. So what are they going to do there? Also, some people tweeting me feedback said as an EDH player, this hurts them too, because singles for their decks stay at Standard prices much longer, right? EDH players live in the bargain bin, so to speak. And that's what makes that format so great. And keeping prices higher for decks longer is an issue. Again, I think we're going to see more expensive decks again. And I think we're going to see more problematic cards and combos, just like we saw with Siege Rhino, Collected Company. And now we're going to see the Looter Scooter running on for 2 years straight. I guarantee it. So, I mean, there are definitely positives and negatives. But I don't think one should just simply bow down and praise Wizards of the Coast for simply undoing their own fuck-up. And I also don't think that really one thing that Wizards, while a lot of people are praising Wizards' ability to accept their mistakes, I wholeheartedly disagree that they deserve praise. Again, more important decision-making without asking the players. Why is Mark Rosewater sending out a tweet asking everyone how they feel about the change after the change is already done? They should have done that before. They should have been asking the players weeks ago, months ago. They should have asked the players before they made the change originally. And now everyone wants to get down on their knees and accept their Wizards of the Coast love all over their face just because they went back on something. I'm not one of those people. I think they screwed up. I'm not going to congratulate somebody for fixing a screw up. And honestly, we don't even know if this is a fix, right? Because going back to the old format, the old way it was done, that way had a lot of problems too. Stale formats, long-running decks that were the same over and over and over again. I mean, prices were out of control. Bulk rares were staying very expensive. So, I mean, Oh, and, for example, in this new, going back to that, it basically makes the spring set far more insignificant than the fall set because the spring set will rotate out faster. So, I mean, there are a lot of problems with the way they're doing it now and the way they were doing it then. Some people brought up some pretty good ideas, like bringing it up to, or mentioning, make standard just the 4 most recent sets. What is this going to do to Pro Tour coverage? I mean, 4 standard Pro Tours a year of the same decks over and over and over again. I mean, are we going to just bring back modern Pro Tours again? Please? I mean, promotional tours. I'm not calling them Pro Tours anymore, in case you noticed. So, I think it would be great to see. I thought them getting rid of the modern promotional tour was a bad idea just because the promotional players said they didn't like the format. Well, then you don't have to show up, right? Give your spot to someone else. That's what I would say. There's plenty of people that would love to compete for that spot. So, the whole response, like I said, just feels kind of knee-jerk, and I'm not ready to congratulate Wizards on anything right now. I know a lot of you guys are like, oh, great, here goes Jeremy again being negative. But let me be clear. I think the overwhelming response from Magic players is positive, and therefore, I believe that this change was positive. And I don't even like to call it a change. It's just a reversion back to the way it was. I mean, I can only assume attendance was in decline. I stand by my personal opinion of saying they should have asked the players. They should continue to ask the players. You can poll us so easily with social media on Facebook, Twitter, on their crap Tumblr or Reddit, whatever. Set up polls in all those areas and poll your players. Now, not all your players are on social media. In fact, a lot of players would probably consider themselves a bit of a recluse when it comes to social media, but there's enough of us out there to get a good sample, I think. I think promotional players, we saw Brian Kibler come out and say that he is not a fan. I think promotional players don't like it because, well, they don't have the same financial restrictions that a lot of us do, and they have a bigger appetite for the game than we do. So keeping Standard fresh for them is important. But I think most other players are either happy or indifferent. So for that reason, I definitely support it. I wish they had asked the players. I wish they maybe would have explored other options. What this feels like is, oh crap, attendance is down. Let's just change it back. And so we're just going to see more of the same. More of the same problems that we had before. More Siege Rhino for 2 years. More Looter Scooter for 2 years. And Standard will eventually get stale again. And maybe they'll try something else. But personally, my emotions were happy that they went back to it. Maybe I'll try Standard. So in that way, I guess mission accomplished. But I'm only just one person. What I'm most curious about is what your opinions are. So please share your thoughts down in the comments below. I will try to trumpet them up as much as I can and share them with people. I really, really appreciate all of you hearing me out on all this, and I hope you have a great day. What's going on? There's some links on this slide to more awesome content, some popular playlists, some recent videos, as well as a big button to subscribe to the channel so you can get notified and never miss an upload.